Hello, friends, and welcome once again to the Cinemondo podcast with Kathy, Mark, and Burk, talking about movies.
More movies. Talking again about movies.
Talking and talking.
Why won't they shut up?
Never enough talking, never enough movies.
I really never get tired of it, honestly. Never get tired of movies or talking about them. It's endless.
It's a little pathological, I think.
It is definitely.
We might be touched.
Well, and also I feel like so many of my memories, like as a child too, like it's always about like, it was like that scene and I'll talk about how something's like a movie. Like everything I do is compared to a movie. It's just crazy. And that's why I'm in the movie business.
I love that.
It's crazy. It's what I am. It's in me. I'm just it.
Speaking of that, you know what is a little disconcerting though, sometimes when I go to other countries, like real places out in the middle of the wilderness, and I see these beautiful places, sometimes I start thinking, wow, this set dressing is awesome. It's like I have to stop and, oh, wait a minute, this is the actual thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's weird. You know, I'm not on a set. Somebody didn't just 4 minutes ago finish painting that.
Well, it's not only that you're a fan of movies, but it's your life, it's your livelihood. You're part of that. So I think it's just all encompassing. Could be that way. So
and
it's
I
good
have to really push myself a bit sometimes. Like I'm actually here. This is the real place.
Yeah.
It's not a recreation. It's not fake. It's not a film.
But films feel real to me. Like, I not that I think everything's film, but I mean, they do feel personal and real. Like, they're not just like, oh, it's just a movie. Like, I never just blow off a movie, really. Like, it's like, when I watch a movie, it's a commitment. I care. I don't want people talking through them. Yes. I don't want fucking phones. I don't want any. So it's very important to me that I get involved in the film, whatever it is.
You want to get lost in it.
Right.
That's why you're there. You're there to get lost for an hour and a half or 2 hours into something else. In this film,
and ultimately, you are seeing into somebody's emotions. You are seeing into somebody's real feelings. The person who wrote the film is expressing something to you that they think is important. So in a way, you are living somebody's feelings in their life through their story. That's what storytelling is.
Yeah. And just it's commerce, but it's also art. And I feel like someone's expressing themselves creatively, even if it's trash. It's like someone put a lot of work and intention into it, and I feel like it deserves a shot, of watching. Now, it doesn't mean I have to like them, but I do care about them.
There's a respect for a film getting made, just doing that. So, in this film, I felt right. Well, let's watch the trailer first before we get into it. The film's called Meander.
Let's do it.
The bodies of the victims were covered with terrible.
Help! 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 You're gonna die! Maman,
You're stuck in a pipe.
So if you're listening, you're stuck in a pipe full of traps. That pretty much sums it up. I thought that was, if you're listening to podcasts, you got to hear lots of screaming, and that was probably about it.
It's a woman in a sort of sci-fi looking cat suit crawling through what looks like futuristic spaceship ducting, and with iris door openings and weird orifices and strange sort of torture devices and spiky things and water and fire. Yeah.
Again, it looks like, it reminds me like escape room stuff. Like, I want to do that, except that I would get claustrophobic and hate it. But I liked it, sort of.
Well, it reminded me of that Canadian film from years ago called Cube, where in that one there's 7 or 8 people stuck and trying to get out of these rooms that have all these booby traps. But this is just, she's by herself, at least at the outset. And she just doesn't know what's going on, and she has to figure out. And she's very brave through this, because I would, crawl in a fetal position and say, just, okay, fire, take me away.
They just kill me already. I don't have anything, especially the end scene where some mutilation happens. I'd be like, okay, I'm done. No more.
Well, I have to say, from a production point of view, for the idea of I've worked on plenty of films where people had to crawl through ducting, some sort of air conditioning pipe or whatever, and those are built. They're not actually up in the ceiling crawling through the ducting. They're crawling through a very safe set, and the sides of the construction can be removed so the person is never confined or trapped.
Well, the camera has to shoot him too, so one side is always open, right?
Yeah, but still you're in, when you're crawling, when an actor is crawling, they do it over and over, they do multiple takes, and their knees get, really messed up, your elbows, everything.
Oh, the physicality of it.
The physicality of crawling is very difficult. Try to crawl around on your hands and your elbows for a while. Yeah. So looking at it from that point of view, I think the actress deserves a big kudos for being able to pull that off.
Yeah, her name is...
Yeah, I mean, she didn't get this... Sorry, go ahead.
No, her name is Gaia Weiss.
She was amazing.
And she's great in it. And it was directed by Mathieu Turi, and I thought he did a great job, too, getting the vibe of it. So...
I thought it looked
production
really good.
Design is beautiful. There's some really interesting, weird production design choices and some weird... choices as far as what it turns out to be. And I mean, it's kind of not really a spoiler, because the trailer kind of tells you that it's probably not just some sort of torture device built by a serial killer. This is
a very rich
other than that.
Well, the first scene is like we see her. She's splayed out across this country road, just like obviously she's going through something, and a car kind of drives up and says, "You want to ride?" This guy in there, would you like a ride? And finally she says no. Then she finally says yes, and they start driving, and the news on the radio says there was a serial killer, somebody's been killed, and then she realizes that she's with the serial killer. He slams on the brakes, and she wakes up in this place. You start thinking, well, the serial killer has obviously something to do with this.
Right.
Put her there, and then it kind of goes from there.
I wonder, I mean, we need to talk to the director about this, but as I was watching it, I thought maybe we were seeing kind of a Jacob's Ladder existential horror film about the transition between life and death in a way. And I feel like, I don't know if it was ever literal. I think she thinks it's literal, just like Jacob's Ladder. But I don't know. I mean, the thing is, it works on all levels. Like, you can watch it as more like a parable, like some sort of symbolism of she's being tortured or killed, but she's retreated into this labyrinth in her mind to escape the reality of it. Or she's been dead the whole time, or, I mean, you're never really, they keep it pretty vague. And I think what I like about it is you could apply a bunch of different storylines to it if you want to. But she's grieving, she's in danger. Like, I thought it was cool in that way, but if it's just a parable, if it's just symbolic, it could have been even more insane, but they kept it very grounded. So you weren't ever really sure. There's nothing there you really couldn't build if you really wanted to. They didn't make it too crazy.
Well, I think it was pretty literal, because I think if you haven't seen it, watch it, because we're going to talk spoilery from here on.
Yes.
But you sort of have to, it's one of those movies you have to talk about it in terms of spoilers. So stop listening right now, go watch the movie, because I think we all three liked it. I mean, we all...
I did like it. I thought that actress was incredible.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I like movies that give you something to think about and talk about afterwards.
Right.
And the only way we can do that is if we drop some spoilers, you know. So go watch it and then come back and start now. Okay. I think it's Aliens. I think that they right before, when they put the thing in her and she goes back in time and she remembered like what happened in the car. I think the serial killer guy was trying to kill her, and then there was some kind of a flash and she was taken aboard a alien craft and transported somehow. And I think she was given a new body at the end because she had her feet back and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And the little girl says, "You died several times," like, and also when the weird skull head robot snake comes in and fixes her injuries magically or high technologically, she gets a feel from it. Like when it plugs into her, she gets a feeling, and she says, "You don't want me to die. It's some sort of you're putting me through something that's going to rid me of the garbage. You're sort of doing a virus scan on my brain, and you're doing you're getting rid of my malware." And I think what they were doing was they were getting her into a situation where she could be her best self. And I think they did it with her dead daughter as well. And they actually brought them both back, and they're now on this alien planet, and they're going to live, some kind of life there.
That's a very happy version of this film.
Well, it makes sense because that skull thing, which I thought was a really cool design, like this skull that was obviously a dead person. They said, well, maybe this is kind of like human. This is the best we can do as far as a human friend.
Maybe this will make her feel comfortable.
Yes, and they sort of artificially move the jaw, like it's trying to talk or something.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, and it said like this is a friendly thing. This isn't a scary thing. We're trying to be friendly. This is the way we're communicating with you.
And they showed her memories. They showed her things that she had only seen, things from when she was a baby up until she was a teenager. And then they showed video of her daughter dying, the incident in her life, which she feels guilty for. She was like, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there." And the little girl loses a toy out, her ball bounces out the window, and the little girl tries to get it and ends up falling. Apparently she was left home alone while the mom had to go off to work or something, and she wasn't there, and has carried that with her. And I think what the aliens were doing was they were helping her flush that, helping her delete that, or to learn how to live with it at least.
And maybe they were watching her, maybe like in the first scene where she's on the road, like, she wants to kill herself because this probably just happened, her daughter dying. Yeah. So she doesn't want. So maybe because there's that shot of like the stars or whatever, those points of light coming together. Yeah. And maybe they were sort of just keeping an eye on her and said, okay, she's somebody that we can take and maybe sort of help out. So that's the way I felt too. I felt it was aliens actually taking her aboard this ship. I don't necessarily know why she has to go through these horrible things that would, these traps and these. So I don't know about that, but it made for an entertaining watch. That's for sure. Because I thought they were really well done. I love the fires, the stuff with the jets coming out with the fire and getting in there and stuff. It was cool.
Yeah, I mean, the basic story is she goes through a gauntlet of horrible, trials based on, like Kathy was saying, it's like fire, water, and there she sees along the way, she sees other people who failed. She has to sort of scoot past some corpses, and then there's another person in there who I think is the serial killer guy that she was in the car with. Right. He's in there, but it looks like he's been in there for months or longer, because it's like years maybe, because he looks like, I think one of the reviews I read, he looks like the guy at the beginning of Monty Python's Flying Circus. With
the beard and everything.
And he says, "It's."
That's funny. I did not get an alien sci-fi thing at all from this. I did not even think of that. Now I'm sort of rethinking it. I still am like, I feel like they gave us some information at the beginning. They talk about there's some dead bodies that were found. We have an abduction where he abducts her. She's probably his next victim. She's consumed with grief. I was getting the impression that she was dealing with her abduction, her torture, and her murder inside her brain through this labyrinth of seeing. Like, I think the head coming down to heal her was actually probably just another victim that she's seeing but can't deal with. I saw like the guy getting burned. I feel he's another victim that she just can't, like, she's probably down in this. I was getting this whole other story of like, she was actually being held captive and tortured, and there are a lot of other victims there, and she's sort of incorporating, like, we're in a dream and you hear other sounds, and you kind of incorporate it into your
it becomes
dream.
part of the story of your dream.
I was kind of seeing that, and so it's sort of like this weird sort of, her, like not your life flashing before your eyes, but that sort of weird where she starts coping with her own daughter's death and how she wants to see her again. So she's sort of in a way traveling this tube on her way to like, oblivion, but her heaven was, ending up in like Costa Rica or something with her daughter sitting on a rock, by a waterfall. That to her was heaven, so in a way.
That was another planet, because when the camera pulls out, you see these multiple planets in the sky, and you see this weird sort of rock landscape. It's
but I still
obviously
get like
another
maybe
planet.
they were all different heavens that everybody has. That's sort of their little end game idea. That's sort of what I got. I did not get any alien stuff at all from this. That's just me.
That looked like an alien spacecraft, and those things that had the 3 fingers that were pushing against the membrane, and the
I
weird
think that's
face
her, the death
through.
and birth. I don't think any of that was really literal. I don't think any of that was really real. I think that was her.
Well, that makes for an interesting movie because
I don't know.
I definitely thought it was aliens. I thought like when at the end where she's going through that, that sort of organic membrane thing, that this was sort of like the heart of, a being,
being born.
Or some sort of organic alien thing, because on the other side would definitely there's these 3-fingered or this kind of claw sort of pawing at her,
and they were watching her through that somehow.
Then that face kind of came in, and you saw that in the trailer. It came real close, and she wasn't afraid of that. She actually smiled at it. It was actually kind of a pleasant, friendly.
I felt like at that point she felt like, oh, I get it now. You are aliens, and I'm in some kind of and that's when it's sort of like that feeling of
that's funny,
like in Close Encounters or whatever, where the people go up and they touch the aliens, and they're like, and I thought at that point I thought she was probably feeling something from them too, like, we don't want to hurt you, we're just helping you, we're putting you through some, this is your rebirth because we've given you a new body, and then we're going to give you another new body, when you're done or whatever. They're able to do that. They're so high tech,
And there's also that alien, the kind of whatever the monster, so that burned character that was like running around and chasing after. I didn't know what that was. It was just, interesting. I don't know if that was another person or just...
It was the serial killer guy that got burned up because he had a missing arm. Remember, he lost his arm.
So I totally missed out on that. Okay, so
he was somehow still alive and chasing her. And
okay,
because none of it was real. Because it was an allegory. Because it was her dying and dealing with death.
I can totally see that, because obviously she's thinking of that, and there's the flashbacks, and there's all that stuff that she's reliving. So I get that, but I also think that the aliens could kind of probe her mind and bring that stuff back and help her. So
it was. I mean, to me,
I just didn't get any clear indication there were aliens at all.
It's so funny because I felt like the whole thing was inside of an alien spacecraft. I mean, the symbols on the walls and her suit that she was wearing, and the connector on her belly that the thing connects to, and the robotic thing that comes down, and then that scene where she's touching the walls and she's seeing images from. It was sort of like the end of
seeing your life pass before your eyes,
like the abyss. Like the aliens are able to show you, this is your life, and then at the end of it, when she gets to the clouds, she touches it, and it's obviously like a matrix. It's like a screen, a video monitor kind of a thing. That you kind of get I got the impression that she was inside of a matrix kind of a thing, and that when she was later reborn on the alien planet with her daughter, I think that was her real body. I mean, she was, because they made a point of showing that she had both of her feet, and she didn't have, the injuries were all gone. Even the cuts in her costume were all gone, so she didn't have any cuts in her costume in her alien spacesuit thing.
Keep saying alien, but I'm not buying it. I don't care how many times you say alien.
Why did they go for like an alien production design for the entire movie?
I don't know that that's an alien production design. That looked purely human to me. I didn't
but there is that.
It was just
I hope the
metal
production designer
and fire.
isn't listening.
It was metal and fire. There was nothing alien. I mean, there was gravity. There was water. It was fire. It was screens. I mean,
But
I
there
didn't
is
get anything that high
scene-
tech.
And the
about it.
weird symbols etched into the wall that glow from behind, and there were lines and lines of these weird sort of Morse code looking symbols.
Yeah, but the Morse code ended up being directions. I mean, I saw that as
not
like
the Morse
her.
code. That was the XX diamond.
It's still human though. It's still Morse code, and I don't know. I'm not getting alien. I don't know. I just
there's
didn't
a
get
scene.
it.
There's a scene.
Funny.
where,
It's funny how different we saw it.
Yeah.
Well, there is a scene though where she, the first flashback where they plug in, and then she, to the time of the accident or time where she's, in the car with the serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
You do see the sky, and you see these points of light come together, and the light bright. To me, that's a clear sign that something from the sky is coming down and doing something.
And also when she was saying, I just want to go, I want to end it, the thing had a needle that came out and it was about to inject her with a needle.
Like doctors?
And so she was, but then she realized, oh, the symbols are this and this. And then she said, wait, and the thing stopped, and then it pulled that needle back in and it started going back to healing her, So it was like, okay, it wants to continue this process, We don't have to kill this body.
I don't know why. Like,
well, that's a very good question.
Also, I don't get why would I really want to talk to this director about it because I don't know if they purposely made it vague and that maybe we're supposed to interpret it differently. But why do this long setup this setup in the beginning where we're on this road? Here's this woman, her daughter has died. Then she's picked up by a man who's pretending to be a good Samaritan who ends up being a serial killer, we're assuming. Then, so we have two terrible things happen to her. Then a third thing, we're going to add in aliens, a serial killer, and a daughter's death, and a torture device. It just seems like it's too much to just be that. Like, why would the aliens put her through that? Why would there be this even happening at all? Why would they do it? Like, what was the point of getting her to crawl through this thing over and over again? Which apparently, because they said she died many times, I'm assuming that she has to do it over and over again. I don't know. Like, the thing is, it was so... I just figured they ended up together in heaven.
Technology to repair her injuries with the...
It wasn't real. They were no injuries. It was her relating to the world in a literal way. Like, I saw that.
Is it okay if I stay with my version of it?
Is it okay if I stay with my version of it?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I'm saying. You guys two guys have talked about the alien division. I'm talking about my division. Mine is it wasn't aliens. That's all. I'm saying I'm just got a different take on it. I think that's okay. I'm not saying you guys have to agree with me. I'm just saying that's my take. I'm not going to suddenly agree on the alien thing just because you guys say it.
I think they made a movie you can look at it both ways. You could probably look at it a third way.
Yeah.
There might be another way to look at it. I think, that is a good point. Like, why go through all these booby traps? What, if she died 5-10 minutes in, like for the first booby trap, like, she gets, burned to death, then what's the point? Unless she somehow is reborn or they fix her up, who knows? But I thought she was just really good at getting out of stuff. She was very smart and really, and so she kind of got farther than anybody else did because obviously there were 3 or 4 other corpses that didn't make it as far as her.
Yeah.
So who are those corpses? Are they part of her past? Are they
the
just
victims on the radio that they found
in
the real world?
Yeah.
You know what I think? I think they're her.
But one was a man.
Well, do you think?
He's a man. Clearly a man. Well, then they showed it as a
tell?
man. Do I have to say how we can tell? He's clearly a man, right?
I thought it had long hair like her, and when she moved it out of the way, they showed it had long hair.
Well, he did have long hair. He looked like he'd been in there for years, right?
Oh, you mean the
Oh, you're talking about the live guy.
Yeah,
the live guy who then became a dead guy.
Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about the corpses.
The other ones.
Yeah.
Like the one that was really mucked up at the end. That was all kind of.
And then there was one that came in with the water and stuff. They all had long hair like her, and they were all wearing those cat suits, I think. So I felt like that was her, and she failed in previous attempts, and that was her body, and that's why the little girl at the end, when she says, "Am I dead? Are we dead?" and she said, "You died several times." I thought, okay, that was. She died in the maze by making these bad choices. And the only reason that she remembers not dying is the fact that they regenerated her every time. That maybe the first 5 times she tried the maze, she got killed. And that this was her sixth attempt attempt or something, and she finally figured it out and finally made it.
Well, that's what makes it an interesting film, because
Yeah.
you have three or two, or at least two different interpretations of it, and that's why it'd be nice to get the director on. And
Yeah.
he probably wouldn't. He'd say, "Well, that's what it's about."
Probably
You look at it different
totally
ways.
wrong. The serial killer built it, obviously.
I don't think it was real. I'm just saying. I don't think anyone built it. I think it was all in her head. That's me.
Well, that also
I like
works.
the idea of it being literal, but boy, that would be very expensive and hard to do, wouldn't it? It just seems it was very intricate. I mean, like alien technology.
Well, the other interesting thing is
That was very grounded in earthly things.
thinking from a production point of view, like, obviously they just kind of had one pipe built, and they just kept reusing that over and over again, and bringing in different effects to make it work. So I thought, production wise, it was really smart.
Yeah.
And,
I thought it was really good. I like that she
looked really
started
good.
learning how to get through it. Like she started going from one end to the other and figuring out when to go up and down. Like I thought that was very cool too. You kind of knew where she was, and that has to be hard to pull off.
Yeah. And that thing on her wrist was kind of a cool design, and had the big kind of old school, futuristic numbers.
Time is running out.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
It's well made, well directed, well acted by her. I mean, she's the whole movie basically.
Yeah.
And she's really pulls it off. And there's some real physicality to it, like the scene. I'm claustrophobic, so as soon as the floor starts coming up towards the ceiling, that's
horrifying.
Awful. Yeah.
A lot of scenes of like bladed doorways that she has to crawl through, and you're thinking, that's going to close in on her leg and cut her in half or something.
And at the end, where she has to kind of go under those barbed wire, and it's sort of like ripping into her skin. Was like really
and she had to do
intense.
underwater stunts too. There was a lot of a lot of stuff going on in this film.
And I thought that was really horrifying too. The idea you have to get down this water and swim, and you don't know if there's oxygen at the other side, just horrifying. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That was really
there's
scary.
a dead body in there with you floating around in the water.
There's I think there were 32 times in the movie I said, I would have died right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I would have given up in the first 5 minutes. I'd be like, okay, I'm just going to die now. I'm going to curl up, like you said, curl up in that little chamber and just be like, And she did do that, which I thought was realistic, where she just kind of curled up and went, I'm not doing any more of this. And then she kind of
But
have
then
to
she
gather
kinda
herself
figured
and
out
do it.
something.
Yeah.
She had her second wind.
Yeah, that was very cool. Very, very cool. Very interesting film.
It's a French film, but it's like a co-production. It's in English and in French. And we pronounce it Meander, but it's spelled like Meandre.
Meandre.
Yeah.
And it's in that genre of like Cube, like you were talking about Cube, and I've watched films like that, like Circle. Like I love films where people dropped into something like this and have to figure it out.
Yes.
I just love those. So that I thought this was a really cool kind of different slant, because it didn't seem super literal. It left a lot up to interpretation, and it was just really well acted and had a lot of emotion, a lot more emotion than most of these films have. I mean, I thought the subtext of her dealing with grief was really powerful.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of like just expressiveness. I mean, you were really rooting for her. Like, I feel like I really felt her fear and felt it. Yeah. It wasn't just this like gimmick of like, go to the next tube, go to the next. I mean, it was a real struggle, and I really felt it. And so I thought that was really well done.
Yeah.
And hard to capture for 90 minutes, basically one performance. I mean, there's two performances, but basically it's one performance. And to keep you, she really, I'd like to see her in other things. I'm sure she's in other things, but I've never seen it before. Gaia Weiss.
I'm fascinated by these kind of movies that are produced this way. These like in a small space. There was that. Yeah. Who was the actor? It was where they were buried alive, and the whole thing was just them inside this box, buried alive. The whole film was them trying to figure it out.
Ryan Reynolds was.
Yes, that's it. Oh my God, horrifying. I almost didn't want to watch that because I'm like, I don't know if I can watch him stuck in a box for an hour and a half.
And earlier, Tim Matheson was in one, which was a made for USA Network film that was directed by Frank Darabont, who went on to do a lot of Stephen King stuff. Shawshank. It was his first film, and he's buried alive, and that was really good too. So I they're hard to watch because I'm like, thank God it's not me.
I was on the set one time with an actor who had to be buried alive in a very easy set. It was a half wall, sort of like at the beginning of Body Double, that Brian De Palma thing, where you see how they did him as a vampire at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was very much like that, but it was a little bit deeper, and the guy had to be in this little enclosed thing, and the camera could get like right next to him, and he was supposed to freak out like he was buried alive. And the actor actually had a little bit of a freak out, and he had to push, like get away from this thing. And he was like, hyperventilating and stuff. It can mess with you, even
especially
if
you're
real.
a character. When you're supposed to be believing that you're in there. I can see how that, and you are trapped with all these people and cameras pushing in on you. I mean, I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
No way.
It was tough. He had a hard time doing that.
Woo. But yeah, it'd be interesting to talk to the actress about the experience of filming this also. I would love to hear what that was like, because that you had to be in shape for that.
And it's a continuity nightmare too. Yeah. Things like this where people get, as the film progresses, they get dirtier and dirtier and more injuries.
Yeah.
They don't shoot these things in sequence, so maybe they did this in this case, I don't know. But usually films are shot out of sequence. But in this case, it seems like there was basically all on one set, sort of. So maybe they could have done it kind of in sequence. Mm-hmm. But they still had to keep track of, she's got to cut here. So from here on, she has to have a cut right there. And it's bleeding right when she gets it. So later in the scene, it has to dry up a little bit. And then she gets another cut here. So then she has to have that from scene 28 till the end of the film. And then, and then they add one here in scene 32 that she's got to keep from scene 32 to the end of, that stuff will drive hair and makeup and wardrobe and people like that. They really have to take a lot of notes and a lot of photographs. We used to use, I think they maybe still use Polaroids because you can get them printed out right away, but tons of Polaroids. You take them, click, and you have them on a ring, and it's like scene 1, scene 2. It's that people don't realize that goes on in films like this. I think it just looks natural, like it just happens as she's crawling through. But
luckily it was just basically one actor. Well, it's two actors, but basically just one, just her. That
basically one, yeah.
But it's really worth. It's just started streaming July 7th, so it's out there to watch.
Yeah,
and it's if you're into contained thrillers and really kind of propulsive, moving forward and interesting stuff, this is worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, I think it's on Amazon Prime.
Okay,
too. For like $3 or something, $3 or $4.
Oh,
it's totally worth it. Yeah,
Meander, and it's an interesting title.
Yeah, well, she is meandering in a very stressful way.
Yeah, that's the most stressful of
She's lost. She's wandering around
this. It usually sounds like you're talking about just wandering out and taking a walk or something, meandering around the neighborhood. But I think the actual definition of that is a moving from one point to another point to another point on a map. I think something like that. So in a way, she's meandering from point A to point Z or whatever.
Or she's meandering through her mind. Who knows?
Yeah.
It'd be that too. I mean, it's very true. I buy into Kathy's idea because it doesn't really make sense why they would have her go through these things unless they can bring her back to life. And
it's like putting a rat through a maze.
Yeah.
Or testing her intelligence or testing her resilience or something. I mean,
yeah, if it's alien. So they can go either way. So
or a really sadistic person with a lot of money.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I don't know how they pulled off that whole membrane room, and the memories room. How would they get access to video of her memories? That was either totally in her mind, or it was created by some technology that extracted things from her mind. It's interesting.
Pulled all that shit off Facebook.
Lastly, the sound design I thought was great in it.
Yeah.
I thought it really sounded great. The effects were cool. The music was good. It was claustrophobic and loud in some ways. Yeah. And the explosion of the fire jets were like, whoa, man, that's intense. That's burning you up fast.
It was. You didn't want to be in that.
Yeah,
the production design was really cool too because it never felt cheesy or wobbly. There were scenes where she's really slamming herself into the wall, and usually, I'm sure a lot of people know this, film sets are not really what they appear to be. A lot of times metal is not really metal and things like that. And if you bang on a set wall, your fist might go through it because it's just really thin veneer sometimes. But this looks like they really built it solid. And there was also some evidence that they had a gimbaled set that they could spin around because there were scenes that they were falling against the wall and fall, gravity was going weird. And so they actually built some solid sets for all this action.
Yeah. It looks good. It looks good.
The lighting was really nice. It's hard to also light with a moving light source like that. Like her bracelet was also implied that was the light source.
Yeah.
And it looked really good the whole way through it, even though she was, there was this constantly moving, arbitrarily positioned light source in the scene with her in every shot.
Thought that the one really heartbreaking scene, which I thought was interesting because I feel like a lot of movies would have gone the other way, is when she is talking to her daughter, when she finally sees her daughter in there, and then she goes away going, "You're not real.
Yeah.
You're not real." And she runs away and she looks so like disappointed, like, she's not real. And I feel like so many movies would have been like, "I'm just staying here. I don't care if she's real or
you're not real." Yeah.
And they just stay with it. And I don't know if I would have left, so I liked that she was strong, like trying to be strong and going, "I'm not going to be tricked by this. This isn't real." Like my daughter, it's almost like she'd finally come to accepting her daughter is in fact dead. Like she hadn't really accepted that until that moment. I thought that was really goosebumps. So well acted, so well done. She looked so vulnerable. Like she was so strong and mighty. And then that one scene, she got so small and like sad. It was really well done.
True. Yeah.
I think that was the point where she sort of proved herself. It's like, okay,
maybe that's why she had to do it over and over again until she reached that point.
Right. Maybe. She died multiple times or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, we liked it, I think.
Yeah, I think it was very, very interesting and lots to talk about. And not everyone's going to agree. I would like to hear if you guys comment below what you think happened. Maybe it's neither of the things we talked about. It could be a whole other setup,
Yeah, we could have missed some stuff. So
it's just a really sadistic escape room. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, just obviously comment, and let us know, and we'll certainly bring that up and talk about it.
We will argue with you also.
Yeah. But be prepared to, if you say it's just an escape room, we're going to say, well, how did they get her daughter? How did they get her memories? What is that big membrane room? There's so many things in there that I thought I knew what it was for a bit. And then I was like, okay, it can't be that now. Yeah. And then you think you know what it is. And you're like, but wait a minute, what about that? So yeah, I mean, it's up for interpretation, which is very cool.
It totally is.
Absolutely.
And maybe I was more open to a weird, more interpretation because I watched so many French horror films, and so many of them are what you think, and then they add this weird existential moment of like I don't know what it would even be called, but there's like this opening up of the film of like it's not what you think. Like even that Martyrs film. Like at the end, it was just like this, what? Like it was whole there. What the hell?
Yeah.
You think you know what it is? So that's what I like about the French films is that they give you what you want in like a horror sense, and then they add a little extra to level a layer to it, which I really like. So
and this does that for sure.
It does.
So,
all right,
you might want to check it out.
Check it out. Support those indie films.
Yes.
Yeah. And if we haven't said it yet, like us, comment on us, subscribe to us.
It's all about us.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Thanks for listening and watching.
It's always good to see you out there, and I can see you.
We're watching you.
Burk watches everything.
Creepy.
He sees all.
He's got that sci-fi background going with that green.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All right.
Bye.
Until next time, Cinemondo signing off.